This evening we are going to take some time and look at the new translation, at least part of it. We can't do it all. If we looked at all of the changes that are going to be made, well, I'd just be doing all your funerals before we finished, okay? But we're going to look at some of the things that I will say to you and some of your responses. But more than that, we're going to take a time to see what these things really mean. You know, this is a precious opportunity that we're being given. Coming to Mass can become a very automatic thing, can't it? You know, there's that famous joke that I'm sure all of you have probably heard a dozen times about at the start of Mass, and Father is fiddling around with his microphone, and he says, I'm having trouble with my microphone, and everybody in the congregation says, and also with you. So one of the really good things that the new translation is going to bring about is it's going to require us to really, really pay attention for a little while to what we're saying, because the automatic won't work anymore. So this is going to require us again to really think about what it is we're saying. Now, the translation that we have been using for the last 40-some years was based on a principle called dynamic equivalency. And that's the idea they were trying basically to aim less for a word-for-word translation than more of a paraphrase or try to catch the meaning. And one of the problems with that is that in doing that, sometimes some really important things were lost, kind of glossed over, and even paraphrases of things from the Scriptures, especially the Gospels. So the new translation, the new rule is called formal equivalency, which says, let's work as best we can for a word-for-word translation. And if the Scripture says it this way, then let's use it that way and not paraphrase it. So if it was simply to get us close to the Latin in our English translation, I wouldn't, spend a whole lot of time worrying about it. But by doing this is to recapture some really, beautiful things, some really powerful images. I know as a priest presider, every once in a while, I'll be praying one of the prayers at Mass, and it just kind of like clunk ends. And it's like something missing there. And then I go and look in the Spanish Missal. And in English, the prayer is about that long, and in Spanish, it's about that long. See, the Spanish, they aren't doing this. Here a while back, somebody said to me, why aren't you doing this for the Spanish-speaking? Because they've had their book for a decade or more. See, part of the thing is, of course, that Spanish, like French, Portuguese, Italian, Romanian, and so forth, are Romance languages. They use the same sentence structure, the same thing that Latin does. They're basically a derivative of Latin. English, on the other hand, is a Celtic Germanic language. We use different grammar, with different sentence structure, and so forth. And the other problem is that on the International Commission of the Church for English in the liturgy, there are 23 different countries. And so over the last 10 years, they will come up with something, and then somebody from South Africa will say, well, we don't say it that way. Or New Zealand will say, well, that doesn't make no sense to us. And so on. And so it's taken a while to get everybody, to work through this. But to recognize this great gift that God has given us, and the beauty and the power of these words, and how they flow from our Scriptures and from what we truly believe. The talk this evening I gave came partly from this book by Dr. Edward Seary, which is what this is, his talk. And the other part, half of it, came from Understanding the Revised Mass Texts, which is from Liturgical Training Publications.